So as well, thank you for that explanation about the homes. I'd like as well for our audience to know about truly regenerative climate smart food production systems, or what we might call self-sufficient and climate smart agro-ecosystems. I wanted to note for our audience that within UnityNet, we've been using your original description for these holistic production systems, which you had called a wheel of life farm or a wall farm school. Could you explain a little bit more about some of these concepts?
Well, the wheel of life is another way to say, okay, we've got a farmer here who's transforming waste correctly. That's basically all it is. And you can, let's say, there's so many ways to describe it. We could start with a cow that's kept indoors on bedding. Mm-hmm. All of the behavioral, comfort, and nutritional needs of that cow are met. What do we feed the cow? Well, it's basically going to be some sort of an agricultural byproduct. Mm-hmm. It could be fermented coffee pulp. It could be rice straw that's got some chicken manure or duck manure in it that got fermented and fed to the cow. Mm-hmm. There are so many options here. We do not have to, we never would feed corn and soybean brought in from Brazil or America to feed an animal in Vietnam. That's absolutely ridiculous. Mm-hmm. You see? So the wheel of life basically is just simply transforming waste at high levels. For example, we can take the manure of a cow, fresh manure of a cow, we can remove that each day from the bedding. The urine of the cow goes in the bedding. Mm-hmm. Okay, then that fresh manure can be fermented. Mm-hmm. And then it's fed to a pig. Then the pig is indoors on bedding, and the fresh manure of the pig can be fermented and fed to a chicken or a duck. Then the next step is, what do you do with the waste of the chicken or duck? Well, you can route that, you can put that in water and feed fish. Then what do we do with the waste of the fish? Well, the waste of the fish, we do aquaponics. Mm-hmm. And aquaponics is so well known and so well established now. There's a man back in Saigon who set up more than 2,000 aquaponic systems in the city, in Saigon. There was a young man who worked with him for a few years, and now he's been independent. He's not working with him anymore, but he's coming now, and he's so excited about setting up aquaponics in the little village where we're in Dalat, where we're going to be working. Excellent. And then we sit there discussing aquaponics. My gosh, that's a big discussion. Mm-hmm. You know, what do we use as the grow bed medium? You know, It can't be that sophisticated. Otherwise, you know, there are going to be problems in terms of cost. So what goes into that? Okay, we were talking initially about like rice hull as your main aquaponic grow bed medium, and then we put biochar in there. Mm-hmm. Well, why do we put biochar? Well, biochar has a surface area that can vary between, let's say, 250 to 660 square meters per gram. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? That means whether it's whether it's biochar and composting, whether it's the gut of an animal or the gut of the poultry, any kind of fermentation, composting process, all these little microbes need surface area. Mm-hmm. That's the big thing, surface area. And on that surface, they form a biofilm, and all these little microbes are working together. They're working together. And so when we started looking at, okay, Ali Devlin did this study on the emissions from the gasifier, and then there was a famous professor, Reginald Thomas Preston. Mm-hmm. He was working in Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. He now lives in Colombia, South America. And I have to admit, he did some exceptional work. Mm-hmm. He did about 25 studies on the biochar from my gasifier. And he came back and he started showing me the figures. I said, what in the world is going on? So you got things like water spinach. We got 4 times more, 400% increase in growth. You have another professor did some studies on rice production. If you put biochar in a rice field, we're getting 3 times more rice. The worst figure in any of Greg Preston's studies was 30% increase in growth. Generally, it's around 200%, 300%. And if we're a little bit lucky, it goes up to 400%. And the biochar it's fairly amazing. It can be used in many different applications. But again, I stress, we don't want to just sit there and make biochar and waste heat. The two things, everything, you need combined heat and biochar gasification. Pyrolysis, maybe, but instead of pyrolysis, what I would much prefer is that we do torrefaction. A torrefaction temperature could be, let's say, 250 degrees. With that, you can still get the wood vinegar. You can still do stuff like that. And then with torrefaction too, you eliminate oily compounds that could present a problem when you go to gasify. And you might lose 10% of the energy, but your heat output increases, well, you by at least 20%. You see. You don't, and then of course it's quite dry when you torrefy. So